All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Gorton. I am a developer advocate at Forum. I should probably mute. We're going to have all kinds of problems today. Okay. I need to mute my Twitch stream. All right. I'm Christina Gorton. I'm developer advocate at Forum. Forum is the software that powers communities like Dev and Code Newbies. And today I am here with Hiroko Nishimura, who is going to tell us a little bit about herself first.
Hi, I'm Hiroko, and this is my sleeping cat. We figured, cats always get people to come. So I'm a technical instructor and technical writer, and I am the founder of AWS Newbies. And last fall, I became an AWS community hero. My background is in special ed, so I went to school to become a special ed teacher, and then decided I didn't want to be a special ed teacher. And obviously, there's so much job opportunities available for people who go to school to become a special ed teacher and say they're not going to be a special ed teacher anymore. So I ended up getting a job as an IT help desk engineer, and that was my entrance into the tech sphere. I had never thought that I would be working in tech because it just seemed like such a nebulous, like scary black hole of people doing techie things and techie things wearing hoodies and you know. So that was like my understanding of what IT meant. So, but I started there and I was like, oh wait, this is actually like it could actually be fun. So I started there, moved around a few times, and ended up at a tech startup in New York, and there I worked as a technical services engineer for I think about 2 years,
Mhm.
and then worked as a sysadmin for half a year. And then I left in 2 years, exactly 2 years ago, to freelance as a technical instructor and technical writer. And I teach introduction to AWS for non-engineers courses on LinkedIn Learning, and
Which I've
also teach a
taken.
little bit.
They're
Yes.
wonderful.
And I teach like a couple CSS lessons and courses at Egghead.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to talk a lot more about kind of just teaching in general. Both here and I do teaching on LinkedIn. We've both done Egghead and a few other places, so we'll be talking about that some more. I do want to kind of dive in a little first, kind of like going back to what you said before. Can you tell us a little bit how you even got into sysadmin? I know you said you were a teacher. You decided you didn't want to do that. Did someone just like give you a chance? Did you learn something beforehand? Like, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so my first job out of college was as an IT help desk engineer, and
Mm-hmm.
that came about a little over half a year after I started looking for a job. So I had
Mm-hmm.
moved to New York after I graduated college, and because people say New York is where you go if
Yeah.
you want a job. Um, yeah, it's definitely where you go if you want a job and you have some experience or something,
Yeah.
not someone who's straight out of college with no networking abilities, like don't even know what they want to do with their lives, but definitely don't want to do what they went to school for.
Yeah.
So I was looking for disability advocacy related work because that was something I was really interested in. But I quickly realized they're not really hiring. And if they are, it's like 30K a year. And chances are I'm not going to be the one they choose
Mm.
because I quickly learned, well, I think a lot of people who are trying to get a job with entry level job, they learn quickly like just because you put in a resume does not mean you'll get a call back.
Yeah.
And I think I put in about 400 applications and I got
Wow.
one interview. And so half a year and I was like, okay, this is like it. If I can't get a job now, my sublet is expiring. And if it doesn't work out, I gave it my all and I'm just going to go back home and see what I can find there.
Yeah.
And just as the sublet was about to expire, I got this offer. And it was really interesting because I had applied to this company randomly
Mm-hmm.
to be their recruiter
Mm-hmm.
because they had a recruiter listing. And I was like, any job is good job. I don't
Yeah.
care. Um, but then they're like, oh, we just filled the recruiter role, but would you be interested in doing IT help desk? And the reason why they were willing to hire me with no experience was because it was a bilingual
Mm.
position
Mm-hmm.
and it was for their client, but their client wanted a Japanese English bilingual help desk person. And they're like, we can teach you IT skills if you want to learn, but we can't teach language skills. So we would
Yeah.
like to quote unquote buy your language skills in exchange for basically, you know, helping you get a foot in. And at that time, I had no intention of ever working in tech. So I had
Yeah.
no idea. And it just seemed like something I'm going into something really crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
something that's completely over my head. But I figured we had this 3-month period
Hmm.
where you're working in as an hourly, like non-employee, where you're basically testing the environment out and they're testing you out. And I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? I have 3 months. I'll give this 3 months a try. And if it doesn't work out, I'll leave. And at least I gave it a try.
Yeah.
And 3 months passed, and turns out I'm pretty good at Googling.
Yep.
And so I kept the job, and um, yeah, that's how I started. So I started with the title's official name was like junior IT help desk engineer, but it's the regular stuff: password resets,
Hmm.
printer issues, network issues, my computer's dead, Word won't work, Excel's pasting weird stuff,
Yeah.
the
You're the IT
the
crowd.
screen's flashing. Yeah, everything went through me. And then if I somehow couldn't do it,
Hmm.
then I would like escalate it up. But I was basically the tier one person, and their expectation was basically that everything stops at tier one.
Hmm.
And it was like I was supporting our office, all of North America, and
Wow.
some of South America. So it was like a deep dive into tech support situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that kind of environment really kind of starts you off, right?
Yeah.
Because you're doing all these things. But even though I was doing all the tier one things, I realized pretty quickly that it's such like a tiered environment that unless someone above me leaves and I
Hmm.
magically am able to take their position, I can't go anywhere. Like I'm always
Wow.
going to be doing what I was doing already as a first year person. And seems like people previous to me, they were fine with that and they were
Hmm.
there for years and years. But as someone who just discovered this like amazingly huge ecosystem of career opportunities, I wasn't willing to kind of stay there in the long term because I wanted to see what there is available.
Yeah.
So after 10 months, I moved on to an MSP, which is company that helps other companies manage their IT because those
Okay.
companies don't have in-house IT. So
Hmm.
we're like outsourced IT.
Okay.
And we as an IT support analyst, and it was more of a proactive maintenance kind of position. Make sure the backups are running
Hmm.
properly, networks are up, the servers aren't like out of space. We
Yeah.
literally would go like remote into the servers and delete the cache when it's
Yeah.
getting too close. It's like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff is very chill work. Like not much is expected of you, which is
Mm.
completely different from tier one help desk of like 800 employees.
Yeah.
And it was very chill. You only did certain things, and then sometimes we're like support office moves or setting up a new server, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, but I had thought that this is like a position I can grow into and do stuff with, but quickly realized it was the same thing as the previous company, except worse because I think we had like 10 employees.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
two principals, two like super managers, and a
Oh wow.
manager, and then an admin person and another admin person, right? And then there's
Yeah.
two of us. So basically, unless someone who's been working there for the past 20 years quits,
Yeah.
there's nowhere for me to go.
Quit
And I
your
was like,
chill
okay,
job. Let me move up. You're like, that's not gonna happen.
exactly. It's a chill job, but it was paying me 50K a year. And I was
Yeah.
like, there's probably something more I can do.
Hmm.
Um, and then around that time, a friend had joined a startup.
Hmm.
And he was like, "We're hiring a lot of people, and we're hiring like a help desk person." And I was like, "Oh, help desk is like a step back, and I'd have to do all
Hmm.
the support stuff again." But then I was like, you know what? That's not the worst thing to happen, especially because it was like a rapidly growing company.
Hmm.
So the prospects of me being able to take other like opportunities and grow in the company
Hmm.
is much higher than here. So after maybe 14 months, I left that company and went to the startup. And that was like a really cool experience for me because they were really into, all the SaaS products, all the cloud
Mhm.
computing. And I didn't even know that was cloud computing. I just knew
Yeah.
that suddenly I can do my work like I'm using Facebook.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot easier for me as someone without a traditional technical background to grasp a lot of the stuff that I'm supposed to do and
Mhm.
excel at it. And even I could like start implementing different types of SaaS products to be used in the company. And to me, that was like really cool because
Yeah.
clearly like my skills were going up. And 2 years in working basically help desk, the title was technical services engineer, but it was like I was doing like tier one, tier two, and some of tier three
Mhm.
at the same time. And I was starting to think like, where do I want to go from here? Because the reason why I left the first job was to get out of help desk, and then now
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah.
And um, so I was trying to kind of find my way into a different job, but not knowing what's available
Yeah.
is like one of the most difficult part of working in tech.
Mhm.
I just don't know what is even possible or what jobs are available, and
Yeah.
the only things I know are what I see.
Yeah.
So looking around me, I'm like, okay, there's like the DevOps people over there, but that seems like a different department,
Yeah.
and you need to know the code, I guess. But then there's like, okay, there's the sysadmin people here, but that's like the old stuff. I don't want to work with the old stuff. This is how you get like kicked off the platform. But and then there's the network engineers, but I am not a network person. Like I don't know why, but the moment I saw numbers, I was like, I'm out of here. Like
Yeah.
this, I'm done. Like,
I can
so
relate to
I've
that.
had this I just had this like visceral nope to network engineering. I'm sorry. I love you, my network engineers. You make my life work.
Yes.
Um so those were like not in. And then I was looking at like cloud engineering and cloud administration. And I was like, this kind of seems like something I can do, and it's
Mhm.
new enough that I felt like I still had like a foothold that I can get into and
Yeah.
still kind of excel at it if I put some time and effort into it. So I started looking into, cloud administration, which was already kind of what I was doing anyways with
Mhm.
managing SaaS products and stuff. But I would be going in, a couple steps further and working on implementations and stuff like that. And to me, it was pretty cool because it was like a puzzle,
Mhm.
fitting things together and making things work properly.
Can you give
So,
a brief description of, and I think you kind of have talking about the general stuff, but what cloud administration is, just for people watching?
so I think people just put names to whatever
Yeah,
they feel like it and call it whatever.
I
My
agree.
understanding is like cloud engineering might be more DevOpsy, where
Okay.
you're architecting
Mhm.
um, like IT environments and stuff, whereas
Mhm.
cloud administration might be like a step lower, where like an infrastructure is already set up, but you're like
Mhm.
managing the users, managing
Okay.
permissions, and maybe creating like new app to app
Mhm.
relationships and stuff like that, like Okta.
Mhm.
So we use Okta a lot, G Suite a lot. So then Okta helps us kind of manage other applications through itself.
Mhm.
And whenever we onboarded like a new app or the dev team created a new app, I would be needing to kind of put that in Okta so that people can have a single sign-on experience and don't have to have 50 billion logins for everything.
Yeah.
And
Until
that to
just
me is
this
like
moment,
puzzles.
I've used Okta for a couple different companies I worked at. Until just this moment, for some reason, I didn't put it together that that's like someone on the team must have added those things to Okta. So I'm glad I'm
They
talking
don't
to you.
just show up.
Yeah. Like I'm just thinking, okay, we're like Okta, we get it. We have to sign it. I just didn't even put it together. So
Yeah, someone's working really hard in the background to
yeah,
make sure all you have to do is click that tile.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was like stuff like that that I was looking into doing because I was already doing that. Um, and that's around when I started going like, okay, what is the cloud? What
Mhm.
is cloud computing?
Yeah.
And one of my friends had mentioned that he had gotten a cloud AWS Solutions Architect Associates certification, and it helped me get this like really fancy, nice job with amazing benefits and salary. And he didn't have to have like hands-on experience or
Mm.
whatever. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, what? That sounds
Yeah.
awesome. But what's AWS?
Yeah.
He's like, we're not getting in there. You figure that out yourself. And I don't think the ecosystem is like that anymore. This was, like
Yeah.
2019 or 2018 or something like that. Um, I don't think you get away with getting hired by the big five or
Yeah.
whatever without cloud experience now. But back in the days, they were like really trying hard to get people.
Mhm.
So I decided to take the cloud practitioner exam. This
Mhm.
was like summer of 2018. And it was 2 weeks before the certification exam, and I still had absolutely no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know the core services. I most definitely didn't know how the billing worked. It was like a
Mhm.
whole entire mess in my head. And I know explicitly that this was a huge issue. Like, I didn't know anything because like the week before that I had a horrible interview
Mm.
with a company, and it was literally, I think, 4 men who came in one after the other
Oh.
and asked me to define the service name acronyms.
Oh no.
I did
No.
I did not know any of them.
Yeah.
And
I
first of
think I
all,
did
that's
a
a horrible
post
way to
on yeah, I think
interview.
I did a post on one of those one time just because they are so like all those acronyms. I think I ended up doing a post on Dev about like all the when I was working with Andrew
Yeah.
Brown a little bit more. 'Cause, like
Yeah. No, I have one on AWS newbies too because I
yeah.
was like, there's gotta be a page somewhere that gives me
Mhm.
like a 3-word explanation on these core services because
Mhm.
there's no way everything is this complicated. But at the time there wasn't, and
Yeah.
that's why I had to make it for myself. And so I know specifically that about 3 or 4 weeks before my certification exam, I had no idea about anything because I had this
Yeah.
horrible experience where they'll be like, "What's EC2? What is it short for, and what does it do?"
Yeah.
Like 4 people just came in one after the other,
Oh
and I was like,
man.
"You're not gonna ask about my IT skills. You're not gonna ask about my experiences, like how I problem solve. Like,
Yeah. You're
you
gonna
just
ask me
want me
something
to
I can
be able to
Google?
say words?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's when I was like, okay, I need to pass this exam. What do I do? And I was like, how do I learn best? And I learn best by basically teaching other people and
Mhm.
regurgitating things in my own words so that I
Yeah.
can kind of understand better for myself. And so I created a blog and populated it with articles on everything I needed to know to pass the certification exam,
Mhm.
which is awsnewbies.com.
Yep.
And I made that, I think, in like 8 or 9 days. And then I was like, I took the exam, I passed it. So I was like, okay, I'll
Kudos to
I'll leave it
you,
up
building a
for
whole
thank
website,
you.
putting all this information, and then taking the exam. That's pretty awesome.
Exactly. I mean, I used it to study.
Yeah. But
That's
you
why I know it
shared.
works because I used it to study. So that's
Yeah.
why I know it works. And I passed with almost a full score. So
Nice.
they and then I was like, oh, you know what? If it helps like 1 or 2 people out
Mhm.
in the next year, that'll be great. And so I left it up.
Mhm.
And within like 2, 3 months, the website was getting like 10,000 hits a month from Google.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I guess this is a need.
Yeah.
Like, if I have this problem, seems like a lot of other people are having this problem. And that's around when a content manager from LinkedIn reached out asking
Mm.
if I'd be interested in teaching the
Mhm.
introductory courses for AWS on LinkedIn Learning. And back then I was like, I think you're asking the wrong
Yeah.
person. You do realize the reason why I made this website is because I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. And
Mhm.
that doesn't seem like the person that should be teaching your courses.
You were the perfect
And
person to teach those courses because you knew
and
that
turns out I was
struggle.
the perfect person. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I know where people get confused because I got confused. I know where people get tied up or like they're like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on." And then but at the same time because I've taken the certification exam, I
Mhm.
know like I'm able to explain the concepts
Yep.
and it doesn't hurt that I have a bachelor's and master's in teaching. So that
Exactly.
was helpful.
Doesn't hurt at all.
And doesn't hurt, doesn't hurt. And I was like, wow. because until then, I was saying this earlier in another podcast, but I
Mhm.
was spending the past couple of years kind of trying to like shave away different parts of myself so that
Yeah.
I can fit in this mold of an IT person,
Yeah.
of an engineer, of a sysadmin. And suddenly I'm like, wait a second, I don't have to cut these parts of myself away, like my teacher self, my disabled self. I'm like, I'm a woman, I'm a minority, I have a different like ideas, I have different thoughts, and I'm bilingual, so like I bring together different cultures and all these
Mhm.
things that are unnecessary to be an engineer. I was like, I need to cut them away and breathe engineering and be like, oh, I'm so excited about this new server that's coming out because that's what we're all excited about. And then I was like, wait a second, it's like that's not even true. I have all these like different interests and different backgrounds, and that unique combination actually is an asset, not
Yeah.
something that takes away from my work. And working on LinkedIn Learning, even though that was probably one of the scariest things I've done, other than like getting my head cut open, but
Yeah.
that was a pretty scary thing with, a lot of like, because you definitely, if you feel imposter syndrome at your
Mhm.
job, like teaching something that
Yeah.
you're not a pro at, that you just started learning about, that's just like boom in your face. And I was
Yeah.
like, there's a reason why I'm doing this. Like, people like what I created and people
Mhm.
are learning from what I created. And if I can create something that benefits other people, like I might as well give it a try.
Yeah.
And that that kind of experience shaped like my career after
Mhm.
that. I got promoted to sysadmin
Mhm.
half a year after that, but then I was only in that position for half a year before I quit to be like, I think there are things I want to do that's not this,
Yeah.
and it definitely has a lot more impact on
Mhm.
my like on other people than sitting here, getting stressed out about Active Directory.
Yeah.
And Active Directory is great, but I felt like a lot of other people can be stressing out over Active Directory, but creating these kinds of specific content was something that I was clearly able to do
Mhm.
that was helping a lot of people. So I figured I should put a little more time and effort into doing that instead of juggling 10 different things and doing
Yeah.
everything mediocre. Um, so yeah, that was almost exactly 2 years ago that I left corporate and went freelance. And since then, I've been writing technical documentations, I've been
Mhm.
teaching, and now a couple months ago, my first Egghead full course was
Mhm.
released, and I've been writing for Egghead. So there's a couple articles I wrote on like JavaScript and stuff up there,
Yeah.
and um, I published an ebook on like the financial side of freelancing because
Yeah.
that was one thing I really struggled with when I started freelancing. Even now,
Mhm.
um, no one wants to talk about it, it
Yeah.
seems, and there's not like a definitive guide to how to set yourself up for success with freelancing.
Yeah.
And
It's
talking to
stressful.
people who are, it's very stressful
Yeah.
because the ramifications are real. Like the the
Taxes,
bad
all the
things that
things
can
like yeah.
happen,
Yeah.
yeah, the bad things that can happen because you screwed up just because you didn't know is like
Yeah.
very big consequences. So
Yeah, I
it was
remember the
extremely
first time I had to
stressful.
pay taxes from freelancing and I was just like, I have to pay what? And
And where
I didn't know about the quarterly payments, so of course I got like penalized for that and like yeah, there's just so much people don't talk about when like there's the side
Mhm.
of especially like it I know it depends like where you are in the world as far as like the taxes and stuff go. In the US, you can pay quarterly on your taxes if you're freelancing and you tend to pay a lot more because you don't have the company paying for portions of certain things that you have to end up paying in full. So it can be a bit of a sticker shock the first time you see how much you have to pay on what you're making.
Yeah, it's really, really expensive being a freelancer, and it's really expensive being like a poor freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
If you make like a certain amount, then you can hire an accountant that and they help you with all the
Yeah.
tax stuff and all like the tax savings stuff.
Yeah.
And which was what a lot of my like senpais were saying, right?
Mhm.
People who have been doing this like 10 years, 20 years,
Yeah.
they're like, oh yeah, hire this accountant, this guy's great, or this company's great, but then they're like $1,000
Yeah.
or like $100 a month. And I was just
Yeah.
like, I'm glad you think I make that much,
Yeah.
but I'm sorry to tell you, like I don't
Yeah.
make that much even. Like my whole entire income will be used to cover these people's like
Yeah.
payroll.
Yeah.
And that was like a really difficult place to be in. I've
Mhm.
always done my taxes through TurboTax, and
Mhm.
um, suddenly, like, they can't really help me. And
Yeah.
so this is the first
TurboTax
year,
has
or
gotten a little bit better with it, but it is very complicated. I did do mine on TurboTax when I was freelancing, and I think it was 4 or 5 different companies I was working with. The problem is you're not talking to someone and knowing, just like you were mentioning before, like you don't know all the like things that you're allowed to like write off. I guess write off is the word for it. Those
Mhm.
things that you're allowed to as a freelancer or a business owner or whatever, and then you don't know, am I freelancer, am I a business owner? There's different terms and stuff, and so it's very very complicated.
Yeah, in my case, I wanted to focus on my retirement accounts, and then
Mhm.
that's like another whole entire mess on its own.
Yeah.
And QuickBooks doesn't understand it, TurboTax doesn't
Yeah.
understand it. So it's like it's like
Yeah.
so I wrote an ebook called Freelance Finance 101,
Mhm.
which I it's put together like 2 years of my agony
Mhm.
into this one book so that you at least have like the vocabulary to start researching or start asking around.
Yeah.
And because obviously you make a lot of mistakes, you're just confused or misinformed about a lot of things when you start out. And I wish, like, this is a book that I wish I had when
Yeah.
I started freelancing. It would have helped me like set things up a lot
Yeah.
better than I had previously. And this is the first year I have an accountant, and it's expensive,
Yeah.
but I'm like, at this point, like communicating with the
Yeah.
IRS is so much worse
Yeah.
than paying them like $1,500 that I'm
Yeah.
like, please take my money.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it starts adding up on
um,
even stuff like TurboTax when you're a freelancer. Like it used to be like you could do, if you're not a freelancer, you could almost file for free on TurboTax, although sometimes you get charged. But as you start adding in more and more and more things on those kinds of platforms, you end up paying a good amount that I'm like, I probably could
yeah,
have got an accountant with this.
yeah, no, I think I definitely have paid a couple $100 at
Yeah.
least, if not like $600 every time I'm filing. So I was like, yeah, I could hire an
Yeah.
accountant for this much money. Or, it covers like half of a
Yeah.
real, like really good accountant. I was like, I might as well get an accountant because I did get dinged by the IRS
Mm.
last year.
Mhm.
And it was like a mess because um, I don't even know what they did, but they sent us a refund, but then they wanted it back. And don't
To
send
me,
us the
I didn't
refund.
I didn't cash it. They sent me one too. That after I had like paid taxes and I was supposed to pay and the amount
Yeah.
I paid, and they sent me like a refund and they kept like sending it, and I'm like, I'm not cashing this check. I just don't even want to deal with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. They sent us a refund and then they wanted it back, but then they were sending mail to our old address, and for
Mm.
some reason it wasn't like forwarding. So by the
Mhm.
time that my father-in-law got it, because I guess they like started going back the years to try to catch us somewhere, which
Yeah.
normally wouldn't work because normally you don't go back to places you've lived in the past.
Yeah.
But they did somehow get to my father-in-law, and by the time it got there, it was like already going into collections or something. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, dude, why did you send this to us?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
That
And
that
it
was
was
the
just
thing.
so
When I got
difficult.
the check, I looked it up and there was like all these people like, don't cash it, because like they were just talking about like the problems with the IRS sending people checks and then asking for it back, and then if you don't have it, you're just like, what? And
Yeah,
I'm in another country now. I do still pay US taxes, but I'm in another country, so getting anything to me is just like, ugh. Yeah.
yeah. So that was like a really stressful like week or
Yeah.
two. And I was like, you know what? We're getting an accountant this year because I am not dealing with this anymore.
Yeah.
And yes, I published that in February, complete
Mhm.
like digression, but it's like a really important thing when you're considering freelancing. And this isn't like, even if you don't quit your job, but you are doing freelance, like this is
Yeah.
still something you have to deal with. Um And I wrote it mostly for people who are making at least like $500 a month so that
Mhm.
it's like something you're serious about and
Mhm.
it's bringing you benefits. And I read about a lot about like the mindset part of it too, because like a lot of people start their side hustles and stuff
Mhm.
and they put in a lot of their own money into it.
Yeah.
And then even though it should be running on its own and giving you a profit, they keep on putting money into it because there's so many shiny things that you can
Yeah.
buy or subscribe to. It's like they promise the world to you. But
Yeah.
one thing I always say is like if you are not making profit, if it's not
Mhm.
bringing you money, it's a hobby. And you have to
Yeah.
accept that it's a hobby and set a budget. Like
Yeah.
you can't just keep on putting it in saying it's an investment if it's
Yeah.
not bringing you money. Your business should be bringing you money, not
That's a
taking
really
your
good
money.
point. Yeah.
And I think in this like whole hustle culture thing where everyone needs to be doing a side hustle and a business and money put into a business and investment, buy the newest gear, buy the newest
Mhm.
subscriptions, whatever, it's kind of easy to get swept up
Yeah.
and lose it when you just say, oh, it's an investment for our future. But it's
Yeah.
like, no, your business is to make your life better. If it's not making your life better, then it's a hobby or worse than a hobby.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think
that's why a
also
lot of
that's
the
a
MLM things are difficult
oh,
too,
yeah. Yeah.
because you're
Yeah,
putting
definitely.
money and time and effort into it, but a lot of times you don't get anything back.
I was a stay-at-home mom
So,
for 5 years. I never got into MLH stuff, but all of my like people I knew did. So it was always just like constantly, bombarded with that and seeing so many friends like really trying because they wanted, stay home with their kids or doing different things like that and
mhm.
just trying to make some extra money and it just like being a time suck. Yeah, that and money suck, but yeah. Um, uh,
Yeah,
to
because they
to
prey on that.
yeah,
So,
yeah. To your point before, I think that's something people sometimes don't think of. So you were talking about like even if it's not like a full-time freelancing, even if you're just doing like a side thing, it's something you have to consider about the money that you're going to get and how much taxes you're going to have to pay on that. Like you and I do courses for LinkedIn. We still have to, pay taxes on that, the money that we get back, and those things that you add on, those are stuff that I don't know that everyone considers initially that like you're like I get money from this company because I'm doing this thing and then you have to remember at the end of the year or you're gonna have to pay on that.
oh, I think I couldn't hear half the things you just
Oh,
said other than
can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I was saying that sometimes we take on these side hustles, these things like you were saying, and we forget that they do. We will have to pay on them to taxes. At least in the U.S. Again, I don't know how it is everywhere else. In the U.S., you're going to have to pay on those things, and so it's something to keep in mind if you're going to invest time into it and have it, making sure that you're actually getting something out of it versus like you may have to pay on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if you're in the States, most states require to pay state taxes. So
Mm-hmm.
you're paying quarterly taxes, but things like QuickBooks helps you
Yeah.
pay your quarterly taxes, but they only help you pay your federal quarterly taxes.
Yeah.
So then you have to remember to pay your own state quarterly taxes, which I completely didn't realize the first year, like obviously,
Yeah.
duh. Um,
Yeah.
so that caused a problem. But there's just like so many places you need to pay, and
Yeah.
they definitely do not make it easy for you to. I'm
Yeah.
like, if you want my money that much,
I
make it
know.
easy for me to give
I
you
had
my
such a
money.
hard
And
time paying the first time I had to pay. I was just like, I
yeah,
remember yelling at my husband, just being like, I'm just trying to give them the money. I can't give them the money.
don't you want my money? Take my money. Yeah, that's how I felt the first year and a half. I
Yeah.
think I've slowly gotten the hang of it. Getting an accountant helps, but
Yeah.
you still have to pay it yourself. But they're like, this is how much you should pay. Click
Mm-hmm.
here, and it kind of takes you to like a portal, which is like really
Yeah.
helpful. But yeah, it's a mess. And if you can afford an accountant, I would highly recommend an accountant. But I really understand if you can't, because when I was making, a couple $100 a month or like
Mm-hmm.
1,000 a month, 2,000 a month, it's like I can't afford to hire an accountant for this. But
Yeah.
it's gotten to the point where it's a little out of control. So I needed some professional help.
Yeah,
But
definitely. And that's one of those things you can try to as you start making a bit more money and you are in a better place to make sure you budget for because it is super helpful. I remember I did get help from my accountant the first time I did too. She did happen to be a little bit cheaper, but it was still a lot for me at the time because I was the only one making money and just working like these side projects. And so it was very helpful though, and something that I felt like more reassured on because it yeah, like we keep saying, taxes are stressful. Yeah.
yeah. And as you know, as we get older, there's a lot more stuff that we have, like a
Mhm.
house,
Yeah.
whatever debt you have. It's like retirement accounts, HSA accounts, like all these things put together just keep on like
Yeah.
layering on top of each other. And you're like, oh, freelance income, dividend income. It's just like, ugh. And the thing that just gets me is that IRS knows exactly what it wants from you. It just,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of like gaslighting toxic crap is that? Like,
Exactly. I also can't find out. I live in Costa Rica. I've been here for 2 years. People keep telling me technically I don't need to pay US taxes. I still do because again, I just don't know. Probably will get an accountant this year to kind of talk through it. But yeah, and I'm getting residency here because my daughter was born here. But I'm like, I have potentially paying taxes in Costa Rica and the US because I work for a US company. I have residence there in Florida, and so it's like a whole other complicated jumble of things that you're just like, when you're younger, you don't think about these things, and like no one
yeah,
teaches you.
that's why there's so many people like getting rid of their green cards and American citizenship because America will come after you no matter where you are in the world.
Exactly.
And they come after all of your assets, not just like ones in the US.
Yeah.
So I know a couple of people who've gotten rid of their American citizenship or their green cards.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm here. I'm taking the benefit of living in the United States. Um, so I'm like, I'll pay taxes. I just,
Just
why do you
tell
make it
me
so
what you
hard?
want me to pay. Let
There's
me
no
pay
reason why it
you.
should be this hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, oh, take my money. But then, I get very depressed and sad every time I do this. But
This is true.
it means you're making money, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I tell myself. Like, if they're taking so much from me, it means I'm doing something right, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about all the things you are doing. We can stop talking about taxes for a little bit. I did link her book and I think you all should get it. It's very helpful. Again, these are kinds of things that other people don't talk about. This is one of the nice things about Hero is that like just like with AWS newbies, this is stuff she wished she knew and then she actually put it out there for other people. And so it's very, very helpful. But yeah, let's talk about all the things you are doing, like the things you're doing now as a freelancer. So as far as I know, and you can tell me other things you're doing, you have your stuff on LinkedIn. I don't think right now you're doing any other courses on there, right? Yeah, so you have your stuff on LinkedIn, which are widely successful, and so you get a good amount for that. You work a lot with Egghead, you do stuff with them. Tell me what else. What are the other things you're doing?
So actually 2021 was supposed to be my year of not working,
Mm,
which didn't work out very
uh,
well. I took on a couple clients in the beginning of the year. So
mm-hmm,
I do technical writing, but in the past half year or so, I started getting a little more business doing basically content strategy and
mm-hmm.
writing for Japanese clients who
Nice.
want things in English. So they
Mm-hmm,
want to be able to communicate with me in Japanese, but the product they want in English.
mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like a strange niche that I
Yeah.
didn't really think existed, but it does. And those are pretty cool because it's like I think I talk about my skills as like multiplication. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just like addition where like Japanese, tech, writing, and it's
Yeah.
not like addition, but it multiplies. And
Yeah.
something individually might not give you much of a hourly rate, but when you put those things together that seem completely unrelated,
Mm-hmm.
it's like your hourly rate like skyrockets and
Yeah.
your demand skyrockets. And I get 99% of my clients and referrals from Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
People just DM me on Twitter asking me to do certain things for them. And this year I was trying to not work and try to focus on getting into remission from my
Yeah.
rheumatoid arthritis, which I did in February. So I'm no longer on drugs, and
Yay.
I've been in remission since February, which is like
Congrats. That's a
amazing.
big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I first got diagnosed, like 4 years ago or something, 4.5 years ago or
Hmm.
something like that, the doctor said that I should basically like expect to be on my drugs for the rest of my life because the
Yeah.
chance of me going into remission is like 3 to 5%. So
Hmm.
it's just not going to happen. And then I went to a next doctor when I moved out of New York,
Yeah.
and she was like, "The amount of drugs you're taking, like, it shouldn't actually be doing anything. Like, I think you're in remission." I was
Mm.
like, "No, no, if I forget to take it, then my joints hurt." So she's like,
Yeah.
"Okay." And so the first year, this whole COVID stuff was happening, and like obviously
Hmm.
everyone's stressed out. So
Yeah.
once it kind of settled down a little bit, and I was settling down a little bit, we started like tapering off to see if I'm in remission, and I was in remission. So I was like, wow, my 2021 goal kind of
Yeah.
um, ended really quickly
Yeah.
in February. Um, and then to completely contradict my year of saying no, I signed a book contract.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm
With
currently, I don't
who?
know if I'm gonna finish with Manning,
Okay.
Manning Publishing, and
Hmm.
it's another like introduction to AWS kind of book.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm gonna finish. I don't know if it's gonna get published, but for right now, I'm like plugging away at it. It's
Hmm.
very stressful
Yeah.
and it's like really like anxiety inducing. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I told myself I'm going to be Zen this year. Like, what am I doing to myself? Because I'm not really expecting to make that much money off this. Like
Yeah.
everyone I talk to who have published books have said that this is not about money. This is about
Hmm.
getting that book, being a
Yeah.
published author. And obviously being published author with a publisher is much more clout than self-publishing. And I
Yeah.
definitely get that. But I'm like, if I really, really wanted to do this, I could do this myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this stress really worth it? But at the same time, if I do manage to finish it, I know I'll be like super ecstatic
Yeah.
and it'll be something that I will have in my bookshelf for the rest of my life. So I'm trying to kind of rewire my brain to enjoy the process instead of getting
Yeah.
so stressed out over it. And I was saying this to my sister, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you'll be fine. You said the same thing about when you were making LinkedIn courses, and look at you
Yeah.
now." And I'm like, "That's true. I've forgotten how
Yeah.
terrible and
I'm
painful
in
that
there
was
right
too."
now. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm like, why did I
You see
message
this,
them about another course? Why am I doing this right now?
right? Yeah, I actually got an email last week asking if I'd be willing to make more courses for their Japanese audience, and
Yeah.
I thought about it, and I was like, that's a lot of money, and
Hmm.
that'll be like a lot of more clout. It's
Hmm.
definitely it's completely new market, and I'll be able to hit a need in a completely brand new market, and the introduction to AWS for new non-engineers is doing very well here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll probably do pretty well in Japan, but then I was like, I'm gonna be so stressed out, and I don't know if that's worth it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't think my Japanese skill is up to par. And so I said no to that. I'm actually kind of proud of myself because I'm really like
Yeah.
incapable of saying no. It's really
Yeah.
stresses me out. Even though I know if I said yes, it would stress me out even more in the long run.
Yeah.
Um, so that was my no for the week. But
This is an
yeah,
important
so
lesson,
right,
folks. Like it can be very hard, especially
yeah.
when you're like still trying to kind of build like your reputation or
Hmm,
brand, or
hmm.
even just like breaking into like tech and stuff. I see this a lot with like newbies, myself included. A lot of times it's just like you feel like you have to say yes to everything, because if you don't, then you'll
Yeah,
stop getting those opportunities, which isn't
yeah,
necessarily true. um Yes, sometimes
yeah,
it compounds and you get more and more if you are saying yes, but a lot of times you'll find that if you're willing to do something, like you and I have done a mix of a lot of things. Like Heroes mentioned she does technical writing. I have too. We've done courses. If you're willing to do some of these things, people will find you and they'll want you to do it. And after a while,
yeah.
you have to get better at saying no, because you do end up with a bunch of things that you're just like, I can't do all the things.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get DMs about like the most ridiculously amazing opportunities. And I'm like, what? Do you even know who you're talking to?
Yeah.
Like, it's me. it's me. I just flump around in the suburbs, you know, like I'm not this like superhuman person that you might think I am, but it's because my portfolio is
Mhm.
walking and talking on its own. My
Yeah.
courses talk for themselves. My articles talk for themselves. I don't market myself. I don't
Mhm.
do anything except like tweet pictures of cats.
Yeah.
And even when I'm just
Which I'm
tweeting
all
pictures
for.
of cats all day, yes. Every time I get a new cat, my timeline just turned into cats. But like stuff like the food and cats, and yet people still DM me because my portfolio is like walking and talking on its own. And I think that's like the coolest thing that I've
Mhm.
discovered since I started creating content online.
Mhm.
Like you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to do these like tests that
Yeah.
interviews generally like that whole entire thing that I was talking about earlier with like, hey, what's EC2, what's
Yeah.
S3, what's Redshift, you know, no one's ever going to do that to me ever again
Yeah.
because those are not the kind of people that are coming to ask me to do work for them.
Yeah.
And one thing that really changed between corporate, doing corporate work, working in corporate as an employee and being a freelancer is that people generally who come to ask you to do things, they respect you so much more
Mhm. Yeah.
because they're coming to you for your expertise and your abilities.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like when you're working as an employee or when you're working in a lot of the gig economy stuff of like taking the cloud, what do you call them? Like Fiverr and stuff where you have to
Mhm.
compete
Yeah.
to the race to the bottom. They're not necessarily respecting you. They
Yeah.
just want the cheapest and the fastest turnaround.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the difference is and how people manage to differentiate themselves so that they don't fall into that trap. But
Yeah.
the flip side of that is like really nice. It's like a really nice place to be in
Yeah.
because your clients pay you, they
Mhm.
pay you more, and
Yeah.
they're nice
Yeah.
and they respect you because they are coming out of their way to pay you to do something that they think you do better than they do. And it took me a while to get into that kind of mindset because I was
Yeah.
also in like, I guess they call it like the poverty mindset or not the
Yeah.
poverty mindset, but like the famine, the feast or famine, the famine
Yeah.
mindset of you're like, I have to say yes to everything, everything, everything. But I'm slowly learning to say no because once you take on too many things, you can't do them all well. It's,
Mhm. That yeah, very
you
good point.
just can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's a really good point. Now that you're saying it, I'm like, I totally see that too. When I was doing freelance work, and I think I tweeted about this at some point, I'm like, when I interview for a freelance job or someone's like reached out to me, they're always like, okay, here's the job, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, do you want to interview me? They're like, no, we want you to have the job because they've seen my stuff, right? Like, there's no
Mhm.
like, there's no 20
It's not an interview.
interviews. There's
They're
no
asking
like
you to do it.
challenge. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's so
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird mindset versus like, because I am in tech and, I more recently got a full-time job and that
Mhm.
process is just so draining versus like when you have some
Yeah.
kind of like specialty or thing that you do where people are coming to you where they're just like, hey, I want you to do this, can you do this, and you're like, okay. Like, versus like the whole interview
Yeah.
process that you end up in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's a really good point.
Yeah. I'm reading people's like horror stories all the time on Twitter, doing the interview process. I'm just like, so unnecessary. But
Yeah.
then just 2 years ago, I was doing the same thing and getting so like burnt out over it.
Yeah.
And my sister works in tech and she would do interview processes and she had to study so much and
Mhm.
work a full-time job
Yeah.
and do whatever else volunteering that she does. I'm just like, why do they do all this gatekeeping shenanigans?
Yeah.
And a lot of them is not even for that job, you know, like algorithms and a lot of stuff that they test you on. People are like, oh yeah, I know the first and last time I used that was on that whiteboard and
Yeah.
I don't use that for my job. So it's,
Yeah, I think people
I don't
joke
know.
around about it all the time, but it's often very true is that you study for the interview, right? Like you study just for
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
versus like what you would actually do in a job. And it is very true. Like when I was interviewing a whole bunch, I was working with a person named Andrew Brown who's done a lot of stuff with the cloud lot of free stuff on Free
Mm.
Code Camp. I was working with DigitalOcean. I was working on a project with Adobe. All things that like they came to me and they were like, "Hey, can you do this?" And there was no interview or anything. It was just like, "We
Yeah.
want your skill set," right? At the
Yeah.
same time, trying to interview for a full time job and just feeling defeated all the time and all the things
Hmm.
that I was
Hmm.
going through and just feeling like the stuff they would ask me in these interviews, I'm like, you can see my body of work that these other people are seeing and like and you can see that I can do these things and it's there. Like I have all this stuff out there.
Yeah.
Like why are you putting me through these things? And I for a lot of them, especially while I was doing the freelancing, I was just like, I'm not going through all these interview processes. Thank you for your time. I'm not doing this. Like it was just too much
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely like pros and cons of freelancing. I definitely don't think everyone should be freelancing, but I
Mhm.
think just this realization, because I think a lot of the tech environment and the interview process really does beat you down,
Yeah.
that it helps you kind of recover your, I guess, self-worth and
Yes.
like, you know, realizing, hey, yeah, no, my skills and me and my different skills actually, like,
Mhm.
even if you're transitioning into tech, the stuff that you're bringing from before tech is like really important.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the tech interviews don't reflect that and they kind of try to pummel that out of you.
Mhm.
Whereas a lot of people who are hiring us to freelance for them, they want that. They're like want us because of all those,
Yeah.
what tech would consider baggage. These people are like,
Yeah.
oh, this makes these people great.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I figured that out, because
Mhm.
otherwise I would probably be another statistic on, hey, completely burnt out from tech and
Yeah.
goodbye.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I got very lucky in the role that I have right now because, and I think just as what you just said, that like you can get really burnt out with the interviewing, but the freelancing in a sense can really help. Like when you are talking to these people, they respect you, they respect your time, they respect like what you're doing. It really like helps you build up your confidence in what you can do. And so when I went in for like the last few interviews I had, for this job and other ones, I feel like that at that point I was like I knew what I could provide and all those extra
mhm,
things like you just said. I knew that those were assets and that is what I could talk about and be like, no, these are good things and this is why. And look what I'm helping with all these other people, and it kind of helped me get into the types of roles that I wanted now. So I think that's a
mhm,
great point. Hold on,
yeah.
I think we have one question. It says, "Hi, sorry I lost the beginning. Did you talk about how to reach the stage people just come and ask you, you can do it?" Oh, so yeah, okay. So kind of talking about like how do you get to the point where people are coming to you and just asking, you know, can you do those things? Um, you can say your
So,
piece first if you'd like to, if you want to comment on that.
yeah. So I think mine started pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. There were like founders of smaller startups who were following me on Twitter and stuff
Mm-hmm.
and following the work I'm putting out. And I think they started seeing me after I created
Mm-hmm.
awsnewbies.com. So that's like a
Yep.
whole entire portfolio on its own. But once that started kind of going around, I think people started reaching out to me after that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I wasn't really interested in doing freelance writing because one, I had just barely realized that technical writing is a thing,
Yeah.
that it's a career and you get actually paid pretty well doing it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so, so important. And, but I felt like I wanted to, still shave myself into this engineer role at
Yeah.
that time. So I was like, no, I'm not willing to do that right now. But come back and talk to me in half a year or something. And they actually reached out half a year later and they're like,
Wow.
hey, you ready? And I was like, oh, what? Like, you actually want to talk to me that much? And it was
Yeah.
just kind of weird to me because I was just writing blog posts.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it really accelerated when my first course was published.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think these people are even watching my courses, but
Yeah.
just the fact that you've put out a course with LinkedIn, I
Mm-hmm.
think really helped. And then after my courses are out, and then after I like redid all my courses, um, they started really like gaining traction.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who have seen it like it, and then they're recommending it to other people. And then once I started working with a couple founders and couple companies, those people started to recommend me to other
Yeah.
founders and other people because they liked working with me. And I just kind of really felt this power of like, if someone is someone's friend, and they're like they get along enough that someone's willing to recommend someone they like to them, that
Mhm.
means they are probably nice. They respect you. They will pay you, and you know they're doing cool work too. And instead of having to kind of go myself and take a gamble on which potential clients
Yeah.
are going to pay, because I've had that problem too where they didn't want to pay,
Yeah.
but that was because I went out and looked for them. And I was like, I'm never looking for a client ever again. But that's such like a douchey thing to say. But I was like, I want someone who wants to work with me, not someone I have to like hunt and try to get money out of. So yeah, I think having awsnewbies.com, and a little while after that when people started reading it and sharing
Mhm.
it is when people started reaching out. And since now I've a lot of things online now,
Mhm.
um people do tend to reach out via Twitter or email and things asking me to do things.
Yeah. I've had the very similar experience too. I used to just share a lot of my work when I was first learning. Someone
Mhm.
saw a bunch of my work on a site called CodePin. They reached out to me, asked me if I would do a skill share course. Once that came out, which I knew like I probably wouldn't make much money on, but like you were saying with books, just having a course out there, I was like, this is,
Mhm.
helpful. When I
Yeah.
did that, I also started blogging on Dev before I worked there. And people saw my blog post, really liked it, saw the stuff I was doing. I had a bit of a niche that I was doing. I was doing green sock animations, CSS animations, and people just needed like resources for that, or they needed me to work on specific stuff. A lot of times people don't want to bring on someone who's like an animator full time, but they need you for like, hey, come make our thing awesome. And then, they'll
Mhm.
pay you good for that time. And so just seeing my body of work that was out there, that's when I kept getting the opportunities too. Plus, when I was writing all the time, and then I was also just like Hiroko mentioned here that when she would learn something, she would, share what she learned, wrote it. That's what I was doing. And so people asked me to be like a technical writer, asked me to do stuff like courses and teach other people. And it was the same thing. So it was really just like putting out that work, kind of spoke for itself. People liked it, and then they came and asked for help. So similar situation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's yeah, I think I don't know if that's how usually happens, but that definitely seems to be the case
Yeah.
for my fellow like freelancing friends. And um when it starts rolling, it rolls really quickly. Like it
Yeah.
snowballs really quickly. And so it took, you know, 3 years,
Yeah.
2.5 years since I made AWSnewbies.com to me to become an AWS hero.
Hmm.
And that's like a huge
By the
privilege,
way,
and that's
again, yay. I know I told you when you first
thank
got it, but
you.
that's so awesome.
Yeah. Um, it's just it's kind of like an unbelievable thing to me because the
Hmm.
cohorts are super duper hardcore, like people doing
Yeah.
amazing, ridiculous things. And here I am going like, I know what EC2 is, and
That's
it's like if
important.
but it is important, but it's one of those like if there's an imposter syndrome, I'm in the hole right now.
Yeah.
Like just like I
That's how I
shouldn't
am
be
just in the
here.
AWS community builders. I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. You all do like all kinds of stuff all day long. It's cool learning from all of you all.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. I feel like I shouldn't be here, but I'm very glad I'm here. So it's kind of like the public recognition
Hmm.
comes also with like the private recognition of people wanting to work with me, but it just kind of like feeds on each other.
Yeah.
And I think I was just lucky. I was in the right place at the right time with the right, really strange set of skill sets.
Yeah.
And but I think I tell people who say they want to be technical writers, technical instructors, but they just don't know where to start because
Yeah.
everything seems to have been done already. And I tell them, usually like if you're trying to figure out how to do something and you don't quite get it and you Google it, it's probably not the top first
Hmm.
article that helps you. You're
Yeah.
probably clicking through like five, and maybe you have to go to page two or page three. But then that one article that makes you go like, aha, and solves your problem, you can be that for someone.
Yep.
Like just because it's already been written or it's already been done doesn't mean you can't like bring your own understanding to it and your own explanation to it, and it's going to help someone. And
Yeah.
once you keep on doing that, then someone somewhere is going to notice because it's going to help someone to be like, oh, this person's great. Like, I like the way they explain things. And it's something very weird and little that you
Yeah.
don't think much of that's going to get you that foot in the door. Because AWS newbies, I just literally made it to study for my certification exam. And I thought like one or two people are going to see it.
Yeah.
And now it's like started this whole entire avalanche of things. So yeah, I'm like, just start somewhere, anywhere. Anything you didn't know last week that now you know and you feel
Hmm.
confident sharing. You don't even have to feel confident
No.
sharing. Just do it, you know? And um,
I think that's a good point with sharing in public though, is that like one, you do need to realize you're going to go into this, that sometimes people are just not wonderful online. I think we all know
mhm,
that. And you are putting work out there, especially as you're first learning, and you probably will have people make comments. One of the things that I learned early on was that even some of the more negative comments, sometimes they were putting in things in there that were useful. And so I would just take the useful part of that and then try to ignore the rest, as best as I could. And then I also found that other people are just really, really willing to help you get better
mhm.
and learn, and they want to see you succeed. And so they will give you good advice. You can constantly get better, you can constantly learn new things. And I think just like Hiroki said here, when you learn something and you put it out there, you are in that mindset of a learner right there. And so like what people are going to find difficult, that someone who's been doing it for a very long time probably wouldn't. Like that's a good technical writers. A lot of times, good technical writers are just people who are like, they may not have like the all the knowledge for whatever they're doing the technical writing on, but they know how to like go in, learn something, and then explain that from the mindset of like, I just learned this. This is the gotchas. These are the things that like are gonna probably get you and are important to know. Like some of my more popular blogs that I didn't think would be popular were just even things like setting up an AWS account, because so many people have a hard time just setting up an AWS account. Like,
Mhm.
you don't think that someone's gonna need those things, or you think it's out there for them, but you can be really, really helpful to someone.
Yeah, one thing that I focus on I don't update my blog very often, but when I
Mm-hmm.
set up something for myself and it takes me a while to figure out how to do it, I tend to create a blog post on it because if it takes me a while to figure it out, it means a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other people might be looking for it. So, um, I would like write on how to set up the sound streaming
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
because that was not obvious to me that you have to download like a virtual driver
Yep.
or whatever for the
We just went through
sounds
this
that
last week with Nick so that I could get set
yeah,
up to do this. And I keep
yeah,
telling Nick that he needs to write a post. And I think at some point we
yeah,
might do a
yeah.
stream just because the setup is so difficult. It's like,
Yeah, and it's just like, "Wait, what do you mean you can't stream what's coming out of your computer?" And this whole concept was just like, "What?" And people on Twitter, like, helped me, like,
mm-hmm,
gave me links or gave me resources, and I'm just like, "What, what, what?" And then it took me a while to figure it out, so I'm like, "Well, if it takes me a while to figure it out, it's probably
mm-hmm,
taking someone else a while to figure it out." So I wrote the blog post, nothing happened, and then, like, half year later, it's like, boom, like,
mm-hmm.
people are researching and getting it and coming to read it like every
Yeah.
day. So,
Well,
I
especially
mean,
during the
blog is like a slow
pandemic, so many
process,
people
but
like
yeah,
Twitch
everyone wants to
streaming.
stream, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's always interesting, but
No, I
it's
think
kind
that's
of like those
really,
things.
go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
Oh
We
no, I
kind of
was
got
gonna
cut
say
off
it's
there.
like if it's something that you are confused about, other people are gonna be confused about, and also the next time you need to do it, you have your own documentation, and
Mm-hmm.
that's mostly what I write my blog posts for is my own
Yeah.
documentation because I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
And all these blog posts that I have, they're very shiny, and I'm gonna have to read through them myself to set whatever I set up next time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is when you learn to like get to the point in technical writing, like because I do the same thing. Like I go back and I read my own stuff because I forget things all the time, and I'm like, oh, good, it's there. I can, oh yeah, I made a post on that. I can just go read it. But then you realize you're like, okay, this is when you learn to get to the point, not have like a fluff at the beginning, fluff at the, because you just want to
mhm,
get into it. And I think even just doing those things for yourself help you be a better technical writer over time, just because it's like the joke everyone says, although I don't really care when recipe people do it because they're trying to make money and stuff, but when you're trying to find a recipe and you have like a foot long thing before you even get to the recipe, and you're like, oh. So if you're having to read that every single time you try to update your own stuff, then you learn pretty quickly not
Yeah.
to do that. No.
Yeah. I don't need your grandma's backstory and her back pain that got her this apple pie. It's like, oh, she developed this when she was sick and
Yeah.
couldn't walk. So it's like, no, no,
One
just
of the
tell
things
me.
I really learned, like when I was working at DigitalOcean, because they had really like strict guidelines on like what we would do for like posts and tutorials and things and stuff, is that like you give the people what they want first, and then if you want to do those stuff afterwards, like do it afterwards, and people can keep reading it if they want, right? Like you're giving
Mhm.
people you're saving people time, you're respecting people's time because you're giving them what they need, and then you can put the extra stuff if you want for people to read, which I thought was always a really a nice way to go about it. Again, I understand why recipe bloggers do it, but I think they always become
Uh,
kind of the joke
I
because of it.
Something I saw recently with the recipe sites is there's some recipe sites where it says skip the intro.
Nice.
And if you click on it, it like gets rid of the intro and you just get to the recipe. And I was like, oh, you guys know, you guys understand.
And that's the kind of site you'll keep going back to for recipes, right? Because you're like,
Exactly,
okay,
exactly.
I don't
Yeah,
have to X
all
out
right.
of a bunch of
I don't have to
ads. I
scroll
don't
every,
have to scroll.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes you don't
exactly.
even know what part is the ad and what part is the actual recipe. And it's just like, no, but
Yeah. Yeah, great point. Someone said the story can be a second post cross-linked between each other, exactly like a, series or stuff like that. Just give people information and then you can you can do the rest. If you want to be a technical writer or a writer in that sense, like that's typically the best approach for those kinds of things and um what people will appreciate more. You'll get less comments on like, I don't need your backstory. I just want the info. Okay.
I mean, some posts you do want to read the
Yes,
backstory, but if you want to figure out how to get your computer to stream sound,
exactly.
you don't need a backstory.
Yeah, like I have a mix of
Just come
posts.
to my
Like
Twitter.
I have posts where they are like, tutorials. And I'm going to give you the information. I also have posts like about like experiences of stuff. I actually at one point wrote a post comparing like finding jobs to like having a relationship. Like you're just like constantly going after these jobs and getting nothing back and getting, stuff like that. And you can have stories there. Like that's not a big deal. But when you're having like a technical post, you might not want those things. Just opinion, I
Yeah,
guess. But
yeah. Yeah, no, I recently started writing my like experiences teaching on LinkedIn Learning or Egghead and
Yes,
stuff like that
I read
because
that one because I was like, I was thinking of
yeah.
writing a post on it, and I was like, oh, she's already got one. Yay, I'm gonna go read what she has to say.
Yeah, I mean everyone has a different experience, but
Hmm.
when I was considering signing the book contract, I was like Googling trying to like see if other people have done it, what their experiences were,
Yeah.
what like the financial side of it and stuff was. And there was like a really like blog post that kind of told you like everything. And
Hmm.
that was like just so helpful to me. And it's not going to make me or not make me sign, but just
Yeah.
to know like a real experience of a real person versus what a company is going to tell you or what you can just expect or assume because
Hmm.
you don't know anything about it. So I was like, oh, people working with LinkedIn, I would have liked to know things when I started. So
You were my
let's like
help
write a
with
blog
that.
post. Yeah, and now I'm looking for like
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
with like Manning or whatever, right? Like the
Yeah.
publisher, so that I'm like, is this normal? Is this okay? It's kind of like because when you're sample size of one and it's the first time you're
Yeah.
doing it, like you don't know what's normal, what's not normal, if you're taking advantage of or like something. And in this
Hmm.
freelancing world, it's like, you know, dog eat dog world. So
Yeah.
you really don't know until you've like done it a couple times. So yeah,
Yeah, that's actually
but
how I met. Well, not really met, but like when I first started talking to you, because I ended up like uh, getting an offer from LinkedIn to do a course on the platform, and I did. I was doing the same thing. Like, what should I expect? What is like? Are these things they're telling me
yeah.
okay? And then I had seen you had done. Well, I had taken your courses on LinkedIn, so I reached out to you, and yeah, she was gracious enough to talk to me for quite a while on like just all the things I should expect. And just like she said, it wasn't necessarily going to like make it so I said yes or no, but it was like a help, like comforting of like, okay, now I know in general what should I expect, what are things that are normal, what are things that maybe aren't, and yeah, it was super helpful that way.
Yeah, I think there should be more of that in the regular workplace too. But, companies try to keep you from talking about your pay and your work
Yeah,
with other people. So it's like just whisper networks, but you have to be privy to the whisper networks to
exactly.
take advantage of that. And I'm generally not one of those people who are privileged to
Yeah.
whisper network. So yeah, I just try to share my experiences so people know what to expect. But
Yeah. Yes. Well, I know we're getting a little bit towards time, and you have some other things you need to do today, but I do just kind of want to like wrap things up and talk a little bit more. So we've just been talking about kind of how Hiroki got into tech in general from the job she had before, just teaching, and why she switched, how she got into it, what those kinds of things led to her being a freelancer, and the kinds of things she's doing now, and how all those skills from the job she had in the past, and so on and so forth, have actually just like been a great thing to kind of lean into as she's gone on and freelance. Was there anything you wanted else you wanted to say or add before we, wrap up?
um I think if you're interested, like now's greatest time as any to like give it a try.
Hmm.
When I started, like I didn't even know I was starting. I just thought it was just another personal project, and
Yeah.
here we are, 3 years later. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think just starting and trying, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But I think the worst thing you can do, one of the worst things that we do to ourselves is like 10 years later wonder like, oh, what if I tried and what if I'd done
Hmm.
that? And if you failed, at least you know you've tried, just didn't
Hmm.
work out. But if you didn't try, then you're gonna wonder, in 10, 20 years, like, oh, what if I had tried that time?
Yeah.
So I would just try it.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks to
And
cloud computing, everything's kind of cheap right now. So if you
yeah,
wanted to spin up a blog, you can do it for free on Dev. You can set up a really cheap WordPress instance, free WordPress instance. So yeah,
put yourself out there. It's scary. There might be not
there
nice
are
people
some
on the
trolls,
interwebs.
but yeah,
But in general, like I mean myself, and I think you too, we overall it's been a benefit and a good thing. The stuff we put out there, the feedback we've gotten back, the people we've talked to has only just been like a good thing exponentially. So yeah, definitely.
the,
Well,
the good definitely outweighs the
yeah,
bad.
yeah, definitely. Well, thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week. So bye.